What should the results section contain? In its simplest form, the answer is the answers to the objectives. But let's look into more detail. So when you give the answers to the objectives, meaning you want to say the findings of your study, you must do so in an organized manner of presentation of the collected data. You may start with the characteristics of the study participants, and by convention, the Table 1 of studies is usually a showcase of the study participants. And then later on, you can do a descriptive analysis of what you found out. So whatever statistical analysis is done, these should be adequately described. For example, are you doing measures of central tendency and dispersion? Are you describing frequencies and proportions? Are you doing univariate, bivariate, and multivariate analysis of associations? So you better be sure what you're saying and why you're stating it. Remember that you must report only the things that are relevant to the objectives that you've written in the first place. Do remember that all measurements that you mentioned in methods must be reported in the results section, ideally in the same logical order as they were presented previously. The results section should be written in the past tense. When presenting the findings of the research, keep in mind the objectives of the research. This is where I'm coming from when I say you just write what your objectives mean to find out. Do not go into or discuss things that are not within the scope of the research. So results, issues, details that do not relate to the research objectives should not be mentioned. And then sufficient detail, as mentioned earlier, should be given to allow others to assess the accuracy and the precision of the results. In the results section, report only data, not interpretation, not suppositions or discussions, just data. And when you do, include both positive and negative findings. Results for primary and secondary outcomes can be reported using tables and figures for additional clarity. And when you do this, you must also proceed in a logical sequence. Figures and tables should be simple, yet comprehensible on their own, with only title, footnotes, abbreviations, and comments. These figures and tables must elaborate textual information instead of simply repeating it. We are admonished to not state what is already shown in tables and figures, not to repeat it word for word in our textual narrative. And do check your document for consistency at all times. Tables and graphs are extremely helpful, especially if you have so much data that you cannot simply narrate everything in the text. So these things, they help you summarize large amounts of data. But as said earlier, do not repeat in the text the exact numerical data contained in the figures and the tables. And try to limit the number of tables and figures to those necessary in order to explain the argument of the paper and to support its findings. A few words about tables and figures. When there's just so much data, particularly numerical data, it may be difficult, if not impossible, to write all of that down in the textual narrative. So we can use a table. If exact values are more important, a table is preferable to a graph. If, on the other hand, trends and relationships are more important than exact values, a graph is more efficient. This is because graphs are appropriate to illustrate relationships, sometimes between and among groups, and more often across a spread of several years or decades. So here we see the increasing incidence of gallstone disease in the young, people less than 20 years old. with consistently highest incidence in Bronx County. So you see how the trends have changed from 1996 straight on to 2010. When you write your paper and you have tables and figures in there, please be sure that they are cited or introduced in the text before they actually appear. Check the numbering, check the titling. Sometimes you would refer to say, look at table 1, and then what the text describes is different from what's there on the table. Note that titles must be written properly, and that title should be reflective, or it should describe correctly the content of the table. Do not use tables and figures when the data can easily be presented in the text. My favorite example for this is the sex at birth proportion that's usually shown. You're only talking about two groups, male and females. So don't waste one figure for that. You can actually say that in one sentence. We had 80% male participants and 20% female. That's it. So that you can save that table allowance for something that's more difficult to write down in the text. Remember that when you label tables and figures, you put the table label above and you put the figure label below. Let's now proceed to the discussion section. The main purpose of the discussion is to explain the meaning of the results. So you must create this part so that there is a natural flow of ideas. You may recap your key findings and then deliberate whether they are consistent with the study objectives. State what your study now adds to the current knowledge, and feel free to name the strengths and the limitations of your research. In recapping the findings of the study, you may also describe how the results are consistent or not with similar studies, and you may discuss confounding factors, possible reasons for discrepancies and inconsistencies. In writing the discussion, remember to avoid the following: excessive wordiness, irrelevant information, repeating the results in detail when you've already done so, and then not interpreting and not critically analyzing the results of other studies that you've reviewed and cited. Also remember not to overreach or expound so much the interpretation of your results. And then do not forget to note and see the limitations of your study. So don't overlook these points. You must recognize the weakness of your study so that you can make better recommendations for future ones. Do include in your discussion a recap of your study's major findings, an explanation of the meaning and importance of the findings. Relate your findings to those of similar studies and try to consider or offer alternative explanations of the findings. When necessary, you state the clinical relevance and the practical utility of the things that were discovered in your study. And then again, you acknowledge your study's limitations and you make suggestions for further research. For the conclusion, these are the most important things that we have to remember. A good paper ends with strong, clear conclusions. You must be straightforward and very certain about it. So if your conclusion includes the space of 3 long paragraphs, you have to rethink it. You're probably rambling on and you have to focus better. So your conclusion should be linked with the goals of the study and limited also by the same boundaries of the study. You as authors are obliged to avoid unqualified statements and conclusions that are not completely supported by the data. For example, stop making statements or assumptions about economic benefits and costs unless you actually did costing and economic evaluation in your study or in your manuscript. And then refrain from claiming unjustified priority about your findings. One very important thing: a negative finding could be as important as a positive finding. So just report as you found the results. Be very honest and transparent with your conduct and reporting of your study. Because while people think that positive findings are the way to go, the truth may actually lie in the negative findings. So let's stop that bias for positive findings and respect negative findings the same way. For the remaining parts of the paper, here we have the references, no? Cite the sources of statements that are clearly not your own. Be consistent in your referencing style. So you follow whatever is given to you or advised to you by the department or the institution or the society to which you belong. And then use the term references rather than bibliography, instead of bibliography. Under acknowledgements, you must have one or two statements that specify contributions that need acknowledging, or recognizing or thanking, but do not justify authorship. For example, the department chair helped you, so you may acknowledge him. You may also acknowledge technical help, financial, and logistical support. Please remember that you do not acknowledge your faculty advisors. This is not to say that be ungrateful. No. Your faculty advisors are co-authors. And therefore, if they are co-authors or supervising co-researchers, they do not need acknowledging because they do not belong here, but they belong to the author listing. Before we end, let's look a bit at the reporting guidelines we were discussing earlier. This is how the homepage of the equator-network.org looks like. And here you see the reporting guidelines for different study types. So in your free time, you may want to look at all of these and check out their checklists. I'd like to take a few more minutes to give you some practical writing tips. And these tips have come from many rounds of reviewing protocols and seeing some consistent errors being made. So this might help you in your future writing of papers. Keep pronouns consistent with the subjects in the sentences. If the subject is singular, the pronoun should be singular. If the subject is feminine, the pronoun should be feminine. The only exception to this is the popular use of the term they and them. We used to employ those pronouns to mean the third person plural, but these days it's allowed and acceptable to use them as singular for persons or individuals whose genders are not known or not specified. Spell out the numbers below 10. Never start a sentence with a numerical figure. You write the number in words. So how do you begin a sentence that goes with 18,569 participants were enrolled in this study? You have to write down that entire thing. Or maybe say a total of, and then you write the number. Always cite the source of a passage, statement, or image that is not yours. Check and recheck all the entries for correctness and consistency. Avoid being too wordy. Stay with straightforward language because this is a scientific document, the thing that you're writing. When writing citations, the period should come before the superscript but after the close parenthesis. No surprises, please. See to it that something you write in the middle part of the paper was already introduced at an earlier part. Title for tables should appear above. Labels for figures should appear below. In summary, research is an essential part of our medical profession, and publication is often an indicator of research success. So research paper writing is an important skill, and one would have greater chances of being published when the research manuscript is written well, and the knowledge of general format and contents of such, as well as writing skills, are crucial. These are my references for this lecture. Thank you for listening, and good day to all of you.